you do my one?
Oh wow, I've not seen this before. That's snazzy.
Thank you so much.
Hello. Hi everyone. Welcome. My name's Alison Bales. I'm so impressed that there are so many people here on opening night, and because I keep hearing that no one goes to the movies anymore, but clearly they do. So, well on you. But I'm even happier to say that the star of the movie is here with us tonight. So please welcome Anya Taylor-Joy. Hi. Yes. They should do that for us. We should have people to do that for us.
I should know how to work.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming to talk about your wonderful film. I said to you earlier, I think it's such a riot. It's such a delight, such a refreshing, fresh take on Emma. And I think you've probably answered a lot of questions about why people remake this story, the universality of it, the resonance in today. But what I want to ask you is the opposite, really, is what was different about it? When you read this script, or when you first met the director and it was proposed to you to play her, what was different that you thought you could make fresh and different, being the many iterations we've seen?
Thank you for the spin on the question. I really appreciate that. I think I fell in love with Awesome pretty immediately. I mean,
The director.
yes, our lovely director. And she was just such a presence, and she was such an artist, and I was just really excited to work with her. But then also the first thing that I said is I was like, hey, so do you remember that Austin at one point had said that she had written a character that nobody but herself would much like? Can I play her like that? And Austin was like, yeah, like let's go for it. Let's make her unlikable at the beginning, because I was just a bit, yes, Emma has this magical quality to her and she is charming, but she's also a bit of a brat, and she's spoiled, and she's annoying, and I wanted people to have certain moments where they wanted to like reach their hands into the screen and shake her and be like, what are you doing with your life? And Austin was into that, and I was just excited to get to play a character that was messy in that way.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception, isn't there, that we have to have characters that we like, because I totally disagree with that. I think we have to have interesting characters, but I don't necessarily want to see a screen full of wonderful people who are always doing kind, wonderful things. But I was struck, and I have gone back to the book since seeing the film, and I went back to the book because I didn't remember her being quite so manipulative and quite so vain and quite so deluded, really. I mean, she's quite deluded about a lot of stuff.
Yes, she is. Yes.
So was it a script that came your way, or was it a meeting with the director who said, I want you to play Emma?
It was one of the weirdest experiences of my life. I had landed in New York, actually, and I was doing this photo shoot, and I got a phone call from a producer that I didn't really know, that I now dearly love because I made this film. And he just said, I know that you're planning on making all these movies this year. Please don't. I've got a script for you. Just wait. And I was like, okay, vague. And then he called me an hour later and said, we want to remake Emma, and we're flying out the director to meet you tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And then I met Autumn, and then we were making the film, and now I'm here. So I don't actually remember saying yes, but I made it, and I feel really happy that I did. And every moment of making the film actually felt very, I don't know, cosmic in a way. Like there were so many serendipitous things that happened on it. Like Mia Goth, Autumn didn't know that we'd been best friends for 4 years, and then just pulled out a picture of Mia, who plays Harriet, and just said, I feel like this girl could be your best friend. And I was like, well, I've been preparing for this role for 4 years. I'm excited about this. So yeah, it felt very fated.
and it's so funny. That's another thing that I went back to the book to and realized, of course, in my much maturer years, how funny the book is and how brilliantly astute her writing is, picking up on people's characteristics and stuff. But I don't know we've seen that quite so prominently as in this version.
Well, it's strange. I think with period drama, it happened such a long time ago that people almost treat it like science fiction, and it's almost like, oh, well, what was funny then can't possibly be funny now. But I think that's a bit deluded about human nature. Like, yes, we've progressed, but we haven't progressed that much. Like, we're still people. And it was really important to us that it was funny and that we really kind of brought the wit back to Austen, and it wasn't just people in white pretty dresses and no mud in the countryside and just like, like we wanted something with a bit more bite.
One of the things, though, that is perhaps more striking when you read the book is how much stress there is on the class differences, and how mean Emma is about anyone who's not really up to her level, and how she's so offended when Mr. Elton could possibly be interested in her, yet she's appalled that he wouldn't be interested in Harriet. So there's this real sort of, I think, double standard in Emma.
Well, she's, I'm going to try and defend her now, but I have to say that I had a weird experience with Emma because I'm very close to my characters, and I've played a psychopath before and spent the entire month and a half that I was playing her defending her to my cast and crew, being like, you don't understand where she's coming from, and then finishing the movie and being like, oh God, like that was not a good place to be in for a month and a half. With Emma, I actually did have days where I would show up on set and say to Austen, I don't like Emma right now. I am struggling to do this scene, or I'm struggling to wrap my head around how she can exist in those double standards. And I think, looking at her sympathetically, she's grown up with a lot of privilege, and she's grown up in kind of this glass cage where she never does anything wrong. People always say yes to her, and they just think, oh, she's cute and she's charming. And I think throughout the film she learns that, and what's nice about it is that it is a story of redemption, and by the end of it we have a crucial addition, which is that she invites Harriet's father to Hartfield, and I think that is her understanding that whilst class is very prevalent at this time, good people should be more important. And I'm glad that my girl learned that by the end of the hour and a half that you watched her be horrible.
Well, I think it does. There's a good parallel, isn't there, to the mean girl today who's like sending awful stuff out on social media, or being mean about the other girls and stuff. I mean, there's so many parallels, which brings us back to the question of the universality of Jane Austen. But let's talk about your co-stars, because what a great cast.
I love them so
amazing.
much. They're such nice people.
Now, do you guys know, because I sat watching the film, first of all I was like, oh my God, it's Johnny Flynn, who I first saw in that TV show Lovesick. Did anyone see that? I think it was called something a bit different in England, wasn't it? And then the two.
Really heard it over there.
Yeah, it's really funny, and so I wasn't expecting him as Mr. Knightley, and then also Mrs. Elton and Mr. Martin, right? They're both in Sex Education, which I've just, of course, devoured. So. And then, of course, it got me thinking, and I'm going off on a wild tangent here, how like sex education is like Jane Austen, because like Emma, because he is the high school hierarchy.
Oh my God, Asa Butterfield is Emma. I'm loving it.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Have you seen the show?
Wow.
It's about a young kid who basically fixes everyone's, physical, sexual, emotional problems at his high school. And I thought, well, this is just like Emma's little world of Highbury, the high school, Well,
that's why it translates so well to Clueless. It's because it is, the archetypes are all very much there, and, I think Austen was saying that it could also be translated to the workplace. It's like it's a certain group of people that are always up in each other's business all the time and just are slightly bored, and so are poking at each other all the time.
But getting back to Johnny Flynn, who I then saw after seeing him in Lovesick, which is a very funny show on Netflix, and I saw him in Beast, where he's amazing, and then seeing him in this, but I still didn't quite see him as Mr. Knightley, but he's so good, and you guys have such good chemistry that it started me wondering, is chemistry something you can act Is it something you can work on in rehearsal with someone to create chemistry on screen, or is it really just if the lightning strikes, it's good, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not?
I was never part of the casting process as much as I was in this film, and Autumn was one of Robert Martin's and everybody, but Johnny was the only Mr. Knightley that we had, and I don't, you know, I've obviously done other films and I've had chemistry with other people, and it's always slightly different, but with Johnny it was very special because he kind of just walked into the room and we were just there, like we could do the scenes, and we have this very easy brother-sister relationship where we just feel very safe with one another, and we can really push each other's buttons acting wise and know that the other person's not going to flinch, they're going to go with it, and by the end of the scene they're going to be like, that was cool, like I liked that you did that and I liked that you pushed it that way, and we loved arguing with each other. It was so much fun, like we just got to go in every day and just needle at each other.
Well, the funny thing is, in reading the book, I thought Mr. Knightley's described as being 38 or 39 and it's 20, 21. I thought, well, you know, that's pushing it a bit for these days. And then I thought that's why they cast Johnny Flynn, because he's much younger and he's sexing the whole thing up. And then I looked Johnny Flynn up and he's 36. But you two work really well together. So there goes my theory about, you know, the whole age thing. But yeah, he's good. And I guess, you know, you can't really in a Jane Austen film have a sex scene per se, but there was still a way of him getting his clothes off. Which was very
That day was so brilliant. It was amazing because Johnny just showed up at the end of the day, because that was a full day of filming, because Autumn really wanted to get it right, and it was there the whole time, and it wasn't necessarily for the reasons that you think it is. It's not just because it's like, let's get, you know, Johnny naked. It wasn't about that. It was about the fact that most period dramas have so many scenes of women getting dressed and, you know, that kind of male gaze sort of thing. But also it's educational, you know, like this is all the pieces, you know, underneath the women's garments and this is what they're wearing underneath. I didn't know that men didn't wear underwear in that time period until I saw this movie, and I hope that, you know, you guys have all learned something today. But Johnny was so down to do it, and he was, you know, the only guy apart from his dresser in the scene, just kind of padding around naked in a room full of women all day long, and he was a really good sport about it, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I enjoyed about it, the educational aspect. He was singing at the end there, right? That was his sing song at the end of the end credits there, because he is a musician. If you don't know him, I actually don't know his music. I just know him through his
He's
acting.
a beautiful musician,
sure.
and he wrote that song from Knightley's perspective to Emma, and I think it's so beautiful and it's so tongue-in-cheek, and it's a very special song.
Let's talk about Mr. Elton then, and the scene in the carriage. What a great, it was shot so beautifully. I realized watching it that you're almost talking to camera when you're addressing each other. I don't know if it is, or just slightly off straight to camera.
Yeah, just like
yeah. Which I thought was a really interesting way of shooting that scene, because I felt like he was in my face.
Yes.
Yeah, well, okay, so two things. One, that was the first scene that we shot of the whole movie, which was like terrifying because we hadn't quite figured out who the character, well, I mean, you hope you have the character figured out, and then you're just shooting and like, okay, like I have to stick with this now. But it was great to do the scene with Josh, and those carriages are very small. Like, people in those times were smaller than we are now, and any scene you see of me in a carriage, I'm like slumped down to the lowest possible level and trying to keep my upper body upright, like kind of vibe. But yeah, no, it was an incredible scene, and Autumn had us do it several different ways, and Emma being more condescending, less condescending, and Josh being less creepy and more creepy. And I mean, I just love the finger twirl that he does. It was very difficult to keep a straight face when that was going on.
And I didn't even realize that was Prince Charles from The Crown. Yeah. Did you all know that? Yeah. I don't know. I was like, he looks.
Everybody, he's very good.
Yeah, he looks familiar. But I can't quite place him, and then it sunk in. So let's talk about your director, Autumn de Wilde. She's a photographer, and that clearly shows in the beautiful. I was going to say mise en scène, but that's such a pretentious word, isn't it? But her frame,
Use it.
Her frame is gorgeous. especially there was a shot of you at the end standing in front of a large shrub bush in a dress where I don't know, it sort of looked pre-Raphaelite, it looked, you were also sort of merging into the flowers. It was just so gorgeous. Are you aware of her eye are you sort of thinking about your lines or about your character? How much do you notice of what she's doing in the frame?
I personally believe it's my job as an actor to get inside my director's head and understand what they want so much that I can guess when they like something or don't like something before they've even said anything. And for Awesome, I had a phrase which was, do you want me to do the pretty? Which is, I could do a scene and I would think like, oh yeah, that was really good. And I'd come out of the carriage and I'd be like, wait a second. I'd turn back to Awesome and go, you want me to pause right next to this mirror where the rose is, don't you? For like a second and a half before I walk in. She's like, yeah, like the rose bush is there. Your face should be next to it and it will look pretty. Like even there's a scene when, right before Jane Fairfax and Knightley sing a song together, there just happened to be a peacock there with like, you know, all of these crazy feathers. And I'm like, you want me to do the scene right next to the peacock feathers so it can fill up the screen. So yeah, you're just pretty aware that she likes the pretty.
Yeah, I think, what else do you think she brought to the film besides her eye?
So much heart and so much love. And she has these incredible references because she came at it from a different perspective. Like before we started filming, we watched Bringing Up Baby, and I don't think we would have understood the slapstick element that she wanted us to have in the film without having seen that. And she had all of these folk songs that she wanted to put in, and yeah, she just had a very interesting perspective on it. And I think that also comes from being an American. You know, there are certain things that we as English people didn't find funny that she was like, oh no, this is funny. Like you need to, you know, amp that up and use that.
Well, one of the very funny characters is Miss Bates and the priceless Miranda Hart. Did you have trouble cracking up? I mean, she's just, every line she delivers is so funny, but so kind of sad too.
I mean, we all struggled making this film, I think, just because everyone was so funny and so good, and we all loved each other so much. Awesome's actually, she's like a better version of Emma because she's very good at friend matchmaking. Like she put together this whole beautiful cast of people that are all very uniquely suited to each other, and we all just really enjoyed seeing everybody do their thing. But Miranda brought so much to Miss Bates, and that picnic scene was really, really tough to do. And I have to say that you guys don't know me, but I'd like to think I'm a much nicer person than Emma in certain moments in this film. And I have to say, my classmates were so sweet to me because I'd run up to them and be like, this feels horrible. They're like, no, it's good. Like, keep pushing it in that direction. And Miranda was very supportive.
Well, I think, I mean, I wasn't watching with you tonight, but there's definitely a gasp when Emma says what she says. And it really takes you aback. It was so hurtful. Right? It was hard to see.
I think it's interesting because sometimes, like, yes, you're aware that Emma's behaving very badly, but sometimes you find yourself laughing alongside because, you know, you're kind of in the character's head, and so you've been lulled into this false sense of security and this understanding of like, oh, okay, Emma's just a bit of a princess, and, you know, she hates it when people rattle their teacups and stuff like that. But when that scene happens, I think it checks the audience as well, because they're just like, oh, okay, like cross the line. That was intentionally cruel. And I think Emma's checked by it as well. And it feels like the film is pre-Miss Bates and then post-Miss Bates. And then we enter the doom zone where it's just lots of crying. Crying in the fields, crying next to Harriet, crying in the carriage, just crying.
I had the feeling in that scene, though, that she didn't mean to say it out loud, that she's so used to sort of, you know, being just with a best friend or someone, Mrs. Weston, right? Yeah, Miss Taylor, who she could sort of confide in, that she sort of blurts it out there, not really realizing that she's going to do any harm. That's why I think we like Emma, because I think you can see through the spoilt brat
Well, she's got a good heart. I truly think that even if it's misplaced, like she actually does really believe that she's doing a kindness to people. She's like, no, no, you're doing it wrong. I can do this better for you, and it will be better for you. And also, I mean, Frank Churchill, that guy, like he pushed her. That's my story anyway. It wasn't Emma's fault. It was Frank Churchill.
And we have to just quickly mention Bill Nighy, who is such a fave of everyone at this point, right? Sort of a late career for Bill Nighy, like, you know, favorite. But he just brings so much to every role he does, even when he has so little dialogue.
He's like the best man in the entire world. Like if there was a dictionary definition of like cool cat, like there's Bill. And he's just got the best music taste and he's everything that you want him to be. Like I was really excited to meet him because I just thought he was the coolest person ever. And he was like hanging out in his trailer with his Nespresso machine listening to like Marvin Gaye and he was like, hey baby. Oh my god, hi.
So the way you're describing it, it sounds like this was just an absolute joy to make. You're working with great people, talented people, but is it hard work too? I mean, obviously it's work, and but you know, are some films harder than others? Is this one more fun because we see how much fun it is? I'm thinking of something like Split. You know, that doesn't look like it's fun when you watch that kind of film. I mean, that film, I was uncomfortable through watching the whole thing.
You're welcome. No, I mean, making horror movies is actually really good fun because you're in such a dark place on screen that you have to have a good time off screen. Otherwise, it's like, why on earth are you doing it? You just want to die. But no, Emma was interesting because I definitely felt that whilst Emma was having a coming of age on screen, I was sort of having a coming of age experience off screen where playing Emma in Emma is a lot of work. And I was doing this film, I had a day off, then I did Last Night in Soho with Edgar Wright, I had a day off, and then I did a Netflix series that finished on December 23rd. So I was like, okay, like this is a marathon run at the level of a sprint. But it really was made with so much love that every day, even if you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and, you know, getting horsesed all the time, you're just aware that you're making something special. And if you have a down day, there's somebody there to pick you up. So this was genuinely a beautiful experience.
Well, I think it was a beautiful experience for everyone here. Everyone seems to really enjoy the film. Please thanks very much for being here tonight. Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya, you mind signing our selfie before you go? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love your baby. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for bringing me Oh, thank you. No worries. Have a good night. 5:30? Okay.